All right, for the next segment of the Sense and Signal podcast, Halloween edition, we are going to participate in a story that I'm calling the Succubus Leadership Consultant. This is based on a voice message that was left for me by a friend and colleague about his experience with a leadership consultant who turned out to be a demon. So let's go ahead and listen to the episode, or not the episode. Let's go ahead and listen to the recording, and then I'll provide reactions as we go through it, and we'll see what we think of this, and if there's anything for us to glean about leadership and sense making through this story about an evil leadership consultant and coach.
Hey, Dan, this is Jeff. I heard through the grapevine that you were doing a Halloween ghost story episode for leaders on the next Sense and Signal podcast. So I thought I'd call in and share a story with you.
That's great.
Let's face it, these are some scary times we're living in, right? Especially to talk about leadership and sense making, because there seems to be very little leadership and very little sense left in the world. Gallows humor, my friend, gallows humor. Now, I know I might sound like you on this phone call, but I want to rest assured that this is not you, because if it was you, you'd remember calling yourself, right? So it's definitely not you. This is Jeff. And the story I'm going to tell is about a leadership consultant and coach who I'm pretty sure is actually a succubus.
Hold on. I just want to make sure that people understand what a succubus is. A succubus is a demon. They often have black wings, often are kind of erotic, right? And they are vampiric in that they suck the life force out of people. You might remember the movie Life Force. It's a horror movie from back in the 80s or 90s about these astronauts who go out into space and they find these kind of vampiric creatures who then come back to Earth, primarily London, and terrorize everyone by sucking their life force out of them. They were depicted in the movie as vampires, but I think more accurately, you could say that they are succubi. So that would be an example of what a succubus is. They steal your life force.
We had a really strong team for a long time at the company I worked for, which I'm not going to name. But, coming back to the office after the pandemic, or what resembled the office after the pandemic with, half the staff working virtually, we really wanted to give them a boost and make them even more agile and dynamic than they already were. So we reached out to a leadership coach and consultant named Rebecca Calloway, based on a recommendation from a colleague whose name, strangely, I can't remember, and who now seems like a freaking dream to me. It's very odd. And, from the moment I met her during the interview, I felt there was something strange about Rebecca. She's one of those people who seems so sugary and bright that she came off, at least to me, like fake and inhuman. Those people who are just so over positive and so over sweetened in their mannerisms and their way of talking that it seems like they're really trying to mask a deep emptiness.
Yeah.
Everything was quotes from Simon Sinek and Brene Brown. Why ask why? Be vulnerable. Make leaders, not followers. Blah, 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 blah. But despite my reservations, the rest of the team were so enamored with her, almost like they were caught up in a brain-deadening sugar high, that they all voted for her. I was the only holdout. And she began meeting one-on-one with each of our team members the following week. And you know what? I have to admit, at first, she seemed great. Her meetings with each team member produced tangible results right away. Each team member expressed a whole new levels of energy and enthusiasm for their work. Wow. They said they found new meaning and purpose to their jobs. And based on this tidal wave of fresh energy and almost manic commitment to collaboration, team building, agile methods, they seem poised to make to iterate toward a lot of profound innovations, Dan. And at this point, I even felt my doubts about Rebecca Calloway begin to fade.
I feel a twist coming.
But soon, Dan, I started to notice something disturbing.
There it is.
One by one, each team member started to fade away. That's the only way I can describe it. They were healthy and vibrant one moment, and then slowly they began to decline. Their bodies became emaciated, and their once vibrant eyes turned dull and foggy. Then usually they just disappeared, vanished like a kid on a 1980s milk carton. Except for one of our accountants, Tony Stein. We found him at his desk, so drained of his life force that he turned into an ashen corpse that collapsed into dust as soon as I touched it.
Oh, you touched him? Oh, I hope they have some hand sanitizer around.
To confront this consultant about what she was doing to our team, and I found her in my boss's office consulting him on more than his business maneuvers, if you catch my drift.
No, I don't catch your drift, Jeff.
I told her she was destroying our team by filling them with so much hollow, sugary drivel. Yes, initially they flew to great heights by her empty words, due to her empty words, but then came the candy crash, and in this case, these crashes drained every ounce of life out of everybody. I told her, you're creating a toxic workplace, I yelled. I screamed, where everybody is working themselves to death.
You should not scream. That could be a HR issue.
And the succubus leadership consultant climbed off of my boss, who was now a pile of brittle ash, much like the accountant Tony Stein. And she expanded her black wings, exposed her glistening fangs, and looked at me with the deadest eyes I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. I don't think you have to worry about HR.
Why are you doing this? I asked. Because it's easy, she said.
Well, that's true.
And then she flew at me. So I ran down the empty halls of our firm while this winged, demonic leadership coach followed me, Dan, following me down all these empty halls, flying after me, quoting the most sugary and bland leadership quotes I have ever heard. Fulfillment comes when we live our lives with a purpose. When we know why what we do, everything falls into place. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. As she recited these demonic leadership quotes, I felt myself become more energized, Dan, like I had superhuman powers. It was just welling up inside me, and it was terrifying. I felt like I could do anything. And she followed me up to the roof of the building, continuing to chant these sugary leadership quotes to me with even more ferocity while she flashed her glistening teeth at me. You can do anything you want with a growth mindset, she yelled. Managers do things right. Leaders do the right thing. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. All these mantras. And then she cornered me on the ledge of the building, Dan. There was nothing I could do. She was hovering above me in her pantsuit with her black wings flapping in the night sky. I knew she was trying to fill me up with so much leadership pep talk that I was going to explode if I heard any more. So feeling drunkenly overconfident on her sugary diatribe, I leapt off the roof to try and escape her empty leadership quotes. Luckily, we only work on a one-story building, so the fall wasn't that bad, and I landed in a dumpster and passed out. Later in the day, or the next morning, when some homeless guy fished me out of the dumpster, I wondered if what I had experienced was just a strange dream. So I went back to the building looking for my colleagues. But in each office cubicle I passed, the only thing I found was a pile of sugary ash in each swivel chair. So that's my ghost story, Dan. Use it if you want.
Wow. Oh, well, we're using it, Jeff. We're using it. That was certainly one evil leadership coach and consultant. Wow. Well, Jeff, thank you for sharing that. I think that brings up a lot of good leadership lessons for us, especially around the sugary type of leadership training that's often offered these days, where it's all about feel good stuff and pep talks. And sometimes it doesn't get to the real root of the problems or challenges organizations are facing, because that's often involving systems thinking and complexity and a lot of other things. And you can only have so many feel good mantras, before you start to get energy from that, before you start to realize that might not be the only thing that I need. Positivity and optimism are all good things, and having empathy and feeling good about the work you do and having purpose, all really important. But there are other aspects and a lot of harder questions to answer when you're in a leadership position too, and you're leading teams as well. That sometimes the saccharine, sugar-coated leadership coaching doesn't always help with. And sometimes, like in this case, it's about creating. It actually can create a toxic work environment where there's this actually thing called toxic transformational leadership, right? Where you're doing all these relational things to build relationships with employees and pushing them to do more. And they invest more, and they put more of their time and labor into things and work later hours and on weekends, and then find themselves burnt out. You've sucked all the energy out of them, just like this succubus consultant. So something to be considerate of. And Jeff, thank you for sharing your voice message and your ghost story.